What's up everybody, and welcome back to the third episode of our F750 CrewCab build series. In today's episode we finally get to introduce to you our brand new donor truck that just got here. We're also at the original donor truck to grab a couple things like the fuel tank and a couple other parts we're going to need to keep this project going. So hopefully by the end of the episode we have a motor and transmission pulled and ready for the transplant in the F750. So stay tuned. Well, this is it. 2016 Ford F250 with obviously the 6.7 Power Stroke with 76,000 original miles. It used to be a landscaping company truck, so there's not a lot of wear and tear. I mean, it's only the XL, so I'm sure I'll get a bunch of crap for that. I mean, the inside is bare bones, and I mean bare bones. We're talking no power locks, no power windows. It is about as bare and as boring as you can get. However, that's all I want. It's all I need, and it's a perfect truck for what I need in order to put into the 76. It's only two-wheel drive. I don't really care about a four-wheel drive truck. I've actually had a lot of people message me on Instagram and ask me why it's not a four-wheel drive truck, and my reason for that is, I mean, these are 43-inch tires. The truck already sits really high. The truck has a nice stance. And I'll be 100% honest, I will never be taking this thing off-road. I will never be up in the mountains with it or stuck. It'll be a work truck, and that's about it. And for that purpose, all I need is a two-wheel drive transmission, and that thing right here has it. Turns out our GoPro up there, the SD card, actually ran out of room, so I discovered that for the past hour or so we had not been filming. So I'm going to give you a little bit of update before we move forward. This is the engine bay currently. We were able to take out the whole entire coolant system as one. It's all right over there. And after that we started chugging away. We took out both battery boxes, the coolant reservoir, the AC condenser, the fan, everything like that. We're getting closer and closer to just having this bare motor exposed. We're going to try to keep everything on it as possible because that'll make the transplant easier. The nice thing about how compact these motors and engine bays are is it kind of just tells you where everything needs to go, right? Everything has a specific bend to it. So even if you're kind of unsure about things and where things might go, if you just follow the lines, it pretty much tells you where everything needs to be set, and you can run from there. We are bleeding the lines of the power steering, things like that, just because as you can see we're getting fluid everywhere. If you can't get everything drained, it's kind of a mess. However, you kind of just do the best you can. So once this thing gets drained, we'll be able to start attaching it and moving forward. So that's where we're at right now. Got to run and get some more SD cards so we can keep filming, and we'll be moving forward. are getting closer to being able to pull this motor out. We're gonna have to end up taking off the cab. There's really no way to pull these motors without having to do so. I mean, the turbo's essentially right up against the firewall, and there's really no room to work when you get down to this level. They're so compartmentalized and put in there so neatly and properly that you get to a point where you take off kind of like the surface level of parts and things, and then after that you really got to jack up the cab. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to get the cab up so that way we can actually gain access to a lot of this motor and get it pulled. So stay tuned. Alright, the cab is separate from the frame. We just pulled the cab mounts off of it, and we have it hoisted up just on the front end just to give it a little bit of lift. We don't have a lift in here, so we can't pick up the whole entire cab at one time. So what we're gonna have to do is we're actually going to block up underneath all the mounts, and that way we can bring the cab back down because we eventually need this to pull the motor out. So next thing we're going to get going on is we are going to drop the transmission, we're going to drop the drive shaft, and that way we can free up this motor and start getting that pulled out. We got the transmission dropped, and we are currently needing to jack up the front end a little bit more. Kyle's actually over there with a chainsaw getting a railroad tie cut down because we need a little bit more space to get the motor out. We're gonna raise up the front a little bit more, and that'll give us adequate amount of space to pull the motor safely, and that way we don't have to remove the oil pan and things like that. Alright you guys, for the second time of this build series, we have an empty engine bay. The new motor is actually sitting right there. New transmission sitting right there. Torque converter, little oil spill. It's fine, it'll clean up. It must be seeing double because we have 167 right here and 167 right here. Now with this empty engine bay, we're going to push the truck out, get the F750 back in, and start mocking up motor mounts and transmission mounts once we get the new 6.7 dropped into place. We're going to actually be able to use the same transmission cradle or mount bracket, whichever one you want to call it, for the F750. That'll actually save us a ton of time on fabbing, and all we have to do is get our depth, and that will be good to go. We're not going to be able to use this motor mounts system or cradle, whichever one you want to call it, because this one's incorporated into the frame. But this will do one thing, and this will help us mock up and get dimensions and bolt holds right and things like that for the F750. So the next thing we got to do is push this out, bring in the F750, and be on our way. Alright guys, that's going to be a wrap for today's episode. We got everything we wanted to do on the donor truck done. We got the motor, transmission, and driveline pulled, and all other key components we need to make this transplant. That leaves us with a clean slate to get going to work on the F750. We can pull it in and start mocking up motor mounts, transmission mounts, and start figuring out how exactly we're going to get the 6.7 motor in place and get it going. So stay tuned.